Thank you for everyone coming on today. I'm going to start by doing the medical disclaimer, Tiger, so if you can put the slides back up so everyone can see them, that would be fantastic. The information is provided for educational purposes only, and it's not intended as medical advice or a substitute for the medical advice of a physician or other qualified healthcare professional. You should not use this information for diagnosing a health or fitness problem or disease. You should always consult with a doctor or other healthcare professional for medical advice or information about diagnosis and treatment. We do not claim to treat, diagnose, mitigate, prevent, or cure diseases. That's a lot to be said. But I do want to start and tell you guys that after the Sculpt and Crush launch, we've had so many testimonials, but we've also had people that are questioning why they're not losing weight right away. Just like Ozempic, there's people that don't lose weight on Ozempic. It's the same way with these particular products. The overall goal is to really help the body be as great as it can be. And I've explained this a million times, but I want to explain it again because I think it's important to say it. Everybody's built different. Everybody's DNA is different. Like, not everyone can look like Regina at her age. And I say that in a way where I mean that, like, we're all different. We all look different, and not all of us are really skinny. Not all of us are really, perfect. I think we're perfect in our own way, but if your vision of perfect is looking like, a Barbie every day, that doesn't happen with all of us. And that's great, because not everyone likes the way Barbie looks. And so you got to remember that. But I will say this, when you need to lose weight and your body's holding on to stuff, it's really frustrating. And so even though we have, and I'll use Stephanie Fultz, she's my assistant, she does an amazing job. She's lost all kinds of weight on Sculpt and Crush. She's a great example. I'm another example of someone who's lost weight, but some people haven't. And like I told Regina when we first started talking about this, I was okay with her taking Crush as long as she took it along, or Sculpt as long as she took it along with Crush, because of the peptides and aminos and the protein. But I'm going to get into a little bit of an educational session today. Then Dr. Fadwa is going to end it. Dr. Fadwa is a PharmD, so she's going to explain it in a little bit different technical terms. I'm also going to explain it, but I wanted to have her on here so she could discuss it as well. I can't ever say that I'm going to make sure someone loses weight when they're on our products, or that they're taking Crush and they can perform better. But I will tell you, for example, Ted Baker, we're on here, he's had a lot of problems in his legs, and he has testimonials about how his legs are better now. And he contributes that to Crush and to Sculpt. However, that may not be the case with every single person. So let's get into this a little bit so we can understand the science. And then you guys can also ask questions, because I want to make sure we never avoid the questions, that we always intend to cover everything that you guys want us to the best of our ability. So Root University is, this class is on insulin resistance and weight gain. Next slide, Tiger. So what is insulin resistance? And I know Clay brought this up a little bit, and I've talked about it on videos, but insulin resistance is a condition where the cells in your body become less responsive to insulin. And insulin is a hormone that's produced by the pancreas that helps regulate blood sugar. So it's really important. You've got to make sure that you're regulating that in order for the body to function even better. It has to be regulated. We know now that with insulin resistance and issues with diabetes, it affects everything from the heart to the brain, to the overall functioning of the body, whereas we used to just think it affected, maybe that you had high blood pressure, or that you had issues with gaining weight, etc. We now know that this is something that's affecting the entire body, and it's very important. In fact, when you have insulin resistance, you can die from that, right? It's really important to get that regulated. It's often associated, like I said earlier, with obesity, physical inactivity, genetics, and certain other conditions like polycystic ovary syndrome and aging. But I have to say this, that's not actually even accurate anymore. There's all kinds of people with diabetes and insulin resistance that actually work out all the time, that they're not overweight, that, you know, they don't have another medical condition. It's just this insulin resistance. And we contribute some of that to environmental factors such as heavy metals. And I know that clean slate is something that we talk about a lot, how it cleans out the body, but that's a continuous process. And I want the root community to understand it's not something that happens overnight. I am not, I'm always at a unique position because I can't claim anything. I also have a unique position because I get to see all the case studies all over the world. And even like my attorney, Klein Preston, he was diabetic and he's had all these different issues, but he's gotten significantly better because he's on the products and he's watching his nutrition, he's watching his health. But that's not the case for everyone. Some people, it takes a lot longer. Some people, they still have to be on their medication, but our products help support their body overall. So every single situation is unique. And that's why when I'm getting questions about Sculpt and Crush and can they stop taking their medication for diabetes or for insulin resistance, my answer is every single person is different. And I'm not their medical doctor, neither is Dr. Fadwa. We're not able to answer those questions. What we can do is explain it to you all so you can make the best educated decision. And yes, I know that there's a lot of people giving testimonials about how this has helped them and how the Trinity has helped them. But again, some people's bodies, it takes a lot longer. So just remember that. Every single person is different, and don't get frustrated with your body. Just remember you have to keep going down this path of really giving your body the nutrients and products it needs so it can succeed at what it does best, which is being the best body possible. On to the next slide. So what are factors that are influencing insulin resistance? So again, genetics is one of them. Your body has different variations. And so everybody's body produces and responds to insulin different. So there is a genetic and an epigenetic component to this. The second is a lifestyle. So your physical activity and your dietary habits are really important. People that have excess sugar and use processed food, like you're eating lots of chips or you're eating lots of chocolate, lots of different things that have processed food in it, that contributes to insulin resistance. And I'm just going to say this to you guys, and I want to say this in a kind, loving way. To get to where we are each day in our life didn't take us one day to get there. So for example, to become diabetic and have insulin resistance, sometimes you've had bad habits like drinking a lot, eating a lot of sugar, not working out, and maybe you're eating right now. Maybe you're not eating a lot of processed foods at the moment. Maybe you're trying to cut out sugar, but that doesn't mean that all those years of doing that wrong are instantly gone away. Yes, some people, it happens pretty quickly. Other people, it takes a lot longer. So just remember that. Don't give up on your body. Love yourself. And just work with your body, be positive at trying to be the best it can be, because if you give up, you're never going to get to the finish line of what's the best for your body. Obesity is something else. You know, your abdominal stomach, when you see thin people, but they have the cellulite and the big stomach around them, that's something they really have to work at, because when you have this abdominal fat, we call it white fat, it's also associated very closely to insulin resistance. In fact, it's associated with a lot of health issues like cardiovascular. We even know now this Alzheimer's type 3, that it's associated with this. So it's all connected. So if you're skinny, but you've got this stomach fat, remember that's coming from a lot of excess body fat that happens a lot of times from sugar or insulin resistance. And it's a cycle of inflammation. So you've really got to turn the button off by giving your body what it needs. And the first step, and I always say this, is cleaning everything out. And we know that lots of issues clean slate on this call. And then supporting the body so it's getting what it needs, right? I take Relive Greens. That really helps me. Many of you guys know that most of my mother, me, my son, we're pre-diabetic. I don't look like it, and I understand that, but it's just genetically something that's been programmed into me. And so I really work very I work very strongly every day to try to do my best. That being said, there's days that I eat too much. There's days that I have too many carbs, and I really lean strongly on the root products because I'm trying to support my own personal body to be its best. And when I don't eat the exact right things, I do lean on things like Sculpt to try to help my body process things quicker and to make sure that I'm speeding up my metabolism, right? But again, I also pay attention to the day-to-day habits, knowing that I'm not perfect, but trying to give my body the best things possible. Aging also changes your metabolism. I think we all know that. Anyone that is over 40 has noticed that their body is not exactly the same. And your body composition changes at different times. Environment changes it, and even lifestyle. I'll give you an example, and I'll use me again. I'm always on a plane. I'm flying all over the world. And sometimes, that's hard on my body. That's an environmental trigger that could impact my weight loss, my insulin. It could even impact diabetes. So it's really important to pay attention to those things and really work with your body to help your body reset. So how do you reset? One of the ways is, again, to detox the body, drink lots of water, drink lots of green tea. You're going to work out. You have to focus on sleeping. And yes, we have some products at Root that can assist with these things as well. Then there's things like polycystic ovarian syndrome, and this can cause issues with the insulin as well as diabetes. And it also causes a person to really hold on to weight. So I don't know how many of you guys have that. I have a few friends that have polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I know that thankfully Crush and Sculpt have helped those individuals. And that's something I have noticed, that I can't claim it's caused all their weight loss, but I can tell you that my friends and people I know that have polycystic ovarian syndrome, definitely Sculpt has been a game changer for them because it's really helped them take the weight off very quickly. And then when we added Crush really helped with the muscle mass and the metabolism as well. So you have a two-pronged approach. And I say this a lot. You start with the clean slate, then you have these other two products that you go along with the other lines of products at Root. And we have had success with a lot of people in really helping at least with the weight loss and how they're feeling as well. Now, the insulin resistance, a lot of times to get that body back in balance, it takes time. Thank you to you guys that are sending me the blood work, because we do have blood work that's showing those changes, but we have to get even more before I can submit for a serious case study so we can really show this all over the world. Next slide. Remember, guys, these are two new products that you guys have launched, and you've launched very successfully all over the world. So when you're talking to people about Sculpt and Crush, make sure that you do educate them on what even gets them to the point where they need that. You're going to talk about age, you're going to talk about lifestyle, you're going to talk about metabolism, nutrition, eating habits, sleep. All of that stuff is tied into it. Why is insulin resistance something that we're talking about right now and spending a whole session on? Insulin resistance has become more and more common. I think Clayton and Dr. Fadwa talked about metabolic disease and how it's something that's almost an epidemic because it's happening with everyone and it's causing a whole host of problems throughout the world. We were at the World Economic Forum and they made an announcement that this was a crisis, right? Obesity and diabetes and metabolic syndrome. It's really something that's not just happening in the United States or in Europe, but all over the world. And when you look at this, what are the risk factors, right? Because I know that's something that people ask about a lot. And you guys know that type 2 diabetes, it's basically insulin resistance is a key factor in developing this, right? Type 2 diabetes, and no one wants that. It's when the pancreas can no longer produce enough insulin to overcome the resistance. The blood sugar levels rise, and this leads to diabetes. And over time, the high blood sugar levels can damage your organs and tissue, leading to complications such as nerve damage, kidney disease, and eye problems. So anyone that reports eye problems or kidney disease or nerve damage, they should be tested for diabetes because all of these are related to that. The goal of the products that I worked on is to really go into people's bodies, clean them out, restore the body, and then help the body function as optimally as it can. And to do that, you really got to get everything back in balance. So if you're diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, that means you really have to double down on your health and really have to focus on getting rid of that, because long term, again, that's going to cause major issues, even death to your body if you can't control it. So you've really got to focus on it. Insulin resistance is also closely linked to cardiovascular disease, heart disease, and stroke. High levels of insulin in the blood can lead to fatty deposits in the arteries, which can restrict blood flow and increase the risk of heart attacks and strokes. And so a lot of people don't understand, when they eat sugar and they drink a lot of alcohol and they eat a lot of carbs and they have some of these risk factors, it's actually a lot more serious than just gaining weight. It's all the other stuff like the heart attacks and the stroke that can really impact and change your life. And I think that's why I keep telling people, Sculpt and Crush were not just made to lose weight and for your body to look good. The first focus is the inside of your body and helping in all these areas. Obesity, this is a bi-directional relationship between insulin resistance and weight gain. On one hand, excess body fat, especially around the abdomen, can contribute to insulin resistance. On the other hand, insulin resistance can promote weight gain by disrupting the body's ability to regulate sugar and fat metabolism. This creates this cycle that I was talking about earlier. And really, we've got to cut that cycle off by giving our body the nutrients and minerals it needs. After we clean everything out, we've got to support everything to make our bodies beautiful inside. So while you guys are worried about the outside of your body, I want you guys to start thinking about, how is the inside of my body going to be as beautiful as it can be? And then things start turning around. And I really want you guys to realize that this inside the body is what keeps you going and physically here on this earth. So that's what the products really need to focus on first before you see those changes, even though some people are seeing those changes right away. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, this is a hormonal disorder that affects women that can have children. And really, this is where you have a high level of the male hormone, and it leads to basically irregular menstrual cycles, infertility, excess hair growth, and weight gain. So that's something that can really impact, and insulin resistance is related to this as well. And then a lot of you guys have been getting with me on non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And this is insulin resistance is a major contributor to this. And that's not fun to have. I have a good friend I just got the phone with, actually, that has this, that has never been, doesn't drink, but has this fatty liver disease. And it's really not good at all. It's caused a lot of things, even cirrhosis. So you have to pay attention to that. And again, this goes back to, what was the intent of Sculpt? What is the intent of Crush? What is the intent of this whole product line? And it's to get the body into equilibrium, to maintain the pH of the body, and to get it to work as succinctly as possible. And we have been doing that with this product. Going to the next slide. So what is the link between insulin resistance and weight gain? Insulin, again, is a hormone produced by the pancreas. It regulates the blood sugar, and it really facilitates the uptake of glucose into the cell for energy production and storage. Guys, if this isn't working right, then your body isn't able to regulate sugar, and it's not able to really get the energy it needs, which is why a lot of people with insulin resistance and diabetes, they're really tired. They don't have the energy. Their metabolism isn't working. Your whole body is trying to compensate because it isn't working right. Insulin also plays a crucial role in fat metabolism. So some of you guys that have fat stored around your body, it may not necessarily be your fault. You've got insulin resistance and it starts storing. And this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. So when your body starts storing fat, at first, sometimes when you take a product like Sculpt, it's releasing that into the body, and it can take longer for you to look like you're losing weight because that's been stored for a long time. So it's a slower process, and people really need to realize that. Insulin resistance can also affect appetite regulation. So high levels of insulin can disrupt signaling that controls hunger and also leads to increased food intake. And sometimes when you take something new in your body, this will occur where you're hungry at first and your body wants even more because you're trying to deal with the insulin issues in your body, and it takes time for the body to adjust with this. Metabolic syndrome, this is another hallmark thing that needs to be discussed. It's a cluster of conditions that include abdominal obesity, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and abnormal lipid levels. I always recommend that people get their blood levels taken. So if they see this, and I want to say this again, if you guys have blood work done, whether you're skinny or whether you're overweight, you need to have blood work done. And you need to look at if you have this, anything in your stomach where there's fat, you need to look at your blood pressure, high blood sugar, and abnormal lipid levels, because you want to make sure if you have all of those, that's a signal that you have a metabolic syndrome, and that's a problem. Not just because of weight gain, but because of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular issues, and basically even Alzheimer's are associated with that. So you really have to focus on really helping with that. Also, inflammation and hormonal imbalance. I keep talking about inflammation. When you have metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, diabetes, you're inflamed throughout the body, and you've got to cut that inflammation off. So you've got to take things into the body that can help your body do that. And that's really important for people to realize. It's a vicious cycle. So this weight gain and can contribute to insulin resistance even more, and vice versa. So it's kind of like when you say, is someone mean because they've had a bad day, or did they have a bad day because they're a mean person? Sometimes they're both connected. And so you've really, again, got to cut off the cycle inside your body. And I think for me, when I worked on Sculpt, that was so important, because my goal was to stop that cycle in the body, understanding that metabolic syndrome is huge, that insulin resistance is huge, that diabetes is huge. When I first started understanding that with Alzheimer's and dementia and ALS, that there's an overgrowth of fungus and parasites in the brain, and then understanding that that kept growing because of the sugar or the insulin resistance or the diabetes or the metabolic syndrome, that became such a focus of mine that we're now in the process of writing grants so we can research it with our government, because we understand that cycle has to be stopped. And we also understand that the mass majority of people in the world right now don't understand this, which is why you guys at the Root community need to educate people on this so they understand what kind of big deal this really is. Let's go back to genetics. We already talked about this a while. I want you guys to know this though, genetics are genetics. But when you have a bad lifestyle, like you're eating the wrong foods, you're consuming the wrong foods, you're not working out, you're not sleeping, you're sitting at a desk all day, this makes the genetic component even worse. I say this a lot. It's an environmental factor many times that unlocks an epigenetic or something in the body that starts this cycle. Our job at Root with these products is to get people products that can help them revert back and have more peace in their body so that they don't have all of these issues occurring. We can't claim we're curing anything, but we can claim that we're trying to help the body be as good as it can be. And having insulin resistance or diabetes is not having a body that's functioning at an optimal. We need to try to get the body to be as optimal as possible. If you do already have diabetes or metabolic syndrome or insulin, then you've got to work to make the body even better, right? So it'll go back to really functioning as it should be. Let's go to the next slide. So the interconnection between insulin resistance and GLP-1 drugs is something else that we're going to talk about. But first, we're going to talk about GLP-1, and that's glucagon-like peptide 1. And this is a hormone produced in the intestine. And I don't know how much you guys have been exposed to this, but particularly in the ill cells of the small intestines and in the NTS of the brainstem, it basically occurs. And it plays a crucial role in regulating blood sugar by stimulating insulin release and inhibiting glucagon secretion in response to nutrient intakes, especially after meals. So this is something that can really be a positive or a negative. So what do I mean by that? The mechanism of action of this, it can actually elevate blood glucose levels. If it's working appropriately in your body, you don't have all these issues. But if you have GLP-1, it can actually do positive and negative. So you've really got to get it in control. And I don't feel like this slide actually goes over to the best of its ability to really describe it. So I'm going to try to back away a little bit from the slide and describe it to you guys. Your peptide 1, basically, the hormone in the intestine, it can really play this crucial role, right? One of the things with Ozempic and some of the other drugs is it's trying to impact this so that basically the sugar levels go lower and the insulin is controlled. So you don't have to basically have this hunger. You don't have to have this high or this low, but it's regulated more. And that's why you have so many drugs right now that are being produced around that. If you look at what we have done on the nutraceutical side and what I have done, I'm really trying to control these different hormones and have them balanced and not out of balance. Because the best way I could explain this to you guys is there's a lot of things going on in your body, and there's a good and bad role of insulin. There's a good and bad role of metabolism in the body. Anything that gets off balance can cause a problem. I'll use myself again as an example. I had a pituitary tumor, a prolactinoma. When I had that pituitary tumor and that prolactinoma, my body had a higher level of growth hormone. So I was the age of 27, 28, and I had a blood level, hormone level of an 18-year-old, 16 to 18-year-old, which there was good things about that because I wasn't really aging. My shoe size grew. I actually got taller because of this tumor. But in the end, that tumor could have caused me to lose my eyesight, or even I could have died from that. So there are some positives that can happen even with insulin in the body when your body is converting it. But the problem is when your insulin becomes resistant and the body isn't working, that becomes a negative. Let's go on to the next slide. So let's talk about the interconnection between insulin resistance and GLP-1 drugs. It's a key to blood sugar regulation and diabetes management. And I'm going to go back to this again. Your insulin resistance and GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic are interconnected because of their influence on blood regulation. And while I understand the concept of Ozempic and I know how it works, I also understand the side effects that can go along with that because of how that drug is formulated, and because of how it impacts GLP-1. Insulin resistance occurs when the body cells don't respond, right? Effectively to insulin. We keep talking about that. And then your blood sugar's elevated. And I just have to say this, at probably almost everyone on this phone call, at some point this has happened where your body's off kilter and the blood sugar levels are way too high, right? So drugs like Ozempic work by increasing insulin secretion from the pancreas, reducing glucagon secretion, a hormone that raises the blood level, and slowing down the gastric emptying and promoting basically this calm where nothing's happening. That's how the drug works. If you look at how Sculpt works, it's working in a similar but different impact. It's trying to impact the body so the body does respond better to insulin. It is working more effectively, but it's doing it naturally, and it's not doing it in a way where it can have the increased side effects that Ozempic can have and some of the other drugs. And I want to say this right now. Everyone keeps talking about Ozempic. The truth is there's a whole class of drugs that go along with Ozempic, and they have a little bit of a different mechanism, but they're similar. They're really trying to work with the body in an unnatural way to get the body to work more effectively. So there's a good purpose. The problem again is all the side effects, which is why I always say you should try things natural, and you shouldn't try them for 30 days. You need to try things for 30, 60, 90 days to 6 months to a year to see how your body's working, rather than doing pharmaceuticals, unless you don't have an option and you have to do a pharmaceutical, and then it's different. Let's go on to the next slide. I am going to have to stop, Patrick, and I'm going to have Dr. Fadwa take over this call. But before I do, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit more, and then she will as well, about Sculpt and Crush. And I'm going to focus on Sculpt right now. So when you look at Sculpt and you look at the natural ingredients and the process that I made, this particular product was made to go into the body and help the body regulate. Well, I can't claim it's going to cure insulin resistance or diabetes. I do know that the formulation that I produced is meant to go in and, like I said, really cause this calmness within the body after you have detoxed. Many of you guys ask me, should they be on clean slate or clean spirits first? And obviously my answer is yes. However, we have a large group of people, and I want you guys to know this, that have not been on clean slate and have not been on clean spirits, and they are on Sculpt, which makes it take a little bit longer. However, that doesn't mean this product is not going to work effectively to really help the body maintain better levels as it pertains to insulin. The issue is we can't make the claim about insulin and diabetes because we're a nutraceutical. However, what I encourage you guys to do is to talk to people about how this product is helping people all over the world, not just with their body on the outside, because we have people everywhere that are losing weight. But also I would start, and I really want you guys to talk to people about how it impacts the inside of the body, because that is the goal of Sculpt. And when I launched that, I explained that this was much more than a product aimed at weight loss. This was aimed at the health of the inside of the body, so it's regulated. There is an overgrowth of fungus and parasites in this world. I just did an interview, they were asking me about zombies. And, you know, zombies are basically, if you really look at the history of zombies, they are, and Patrick's probably laughing right now, but they are, it's really a fungus overgrowth, right? And if you really look into what zombies are, and it takes over the body. Anyone that knows me knows I talk a lot about fungus and I talk a lot about parasites. I don't think we're zombies, but what I think is that we do have this fungal overgrowth. So I want you guys to know when I talk about fungus and parasites, I don't have that on the bottle. I don't say that with Sculpt and Crush. But one of the reasons I made Sculpt and Crush was because I was worried about the fungal and parasitic overgrowth. I did understand that Alzheimer's type 3. So guys, listen, if you go back and look, when did Alzheimer's type 3 come out? You can see it was a couple of years ago. I was talking to the root community 3.5, 4 years ago about this, understanding that it is a major issue that's causing a lot of diseases and a lot of issues throughout our world, and knowing that it's something that will increasingly cause issues. That product line has been developed to help with all different kinds of areas. And I say this constantly, your body is a temple. You are the queen or king of your body, and you've got to take care of your body. And when it starts working right, you're going to see the changes that you want to see. So Dr. Fadwa, are you on?
Yes, I am.
I know you love me just handing it over, but you're so amazing. And I know I would love for you to get into also, I know it's hard to talk about peak plasma levels and steady state when it comes to pharmaceuticals, but I would love you to explain to people, I do want to go into some of the negative side effects that are coming from these pharmaceuticals and the positive side effects. I'm just going to say this, that come from Sculpt and from Crush, because I think here's a side effect of Sculpt. They have more energy. They're sleeping better. Here's a side effect of Sculpt. The blood works better, right? I can't claim that everyone's going to do that, but our side effects are much different than like an Ozempic or one of the weight loss drugs that people are on, because long-term use can cause paralysis and cause a lot of problems in the GI intestines, and even I believe in the heart and the brain and throughout the body, even though no one's talking about that right now. So I would love for you to get into some of that and then explain why some people aren't losing fast weight with Sculpt and some people are. That would be fantastic. And also would love to get into how the two products together help because of the protein and the aminos and how that's impacting people's bodies, because you're losing a lot of that as you age. So if you could get into that, that would be great. And then if you and Patrick want to do some giveaways from me, that would be amazing as well.
All right, you got
All
it.
right. Thank you, you guys. It's so good to see everyone. Many, many blessings and much love. And I'm handing it over to an amazing PharmD that's going to do a great job and explain even more than me.
Oh, thank you. My honor. Can you hear me okay? Because Patrick, you told me last time you couldn't hear me very well.
Good to go.
All right, awesome. I brought my handy dandy speaker, so let's see if it works. So, do I share screen?
No, Tiger, can you go ahead and put the slides back up?
Sorry, I didn't know she was going to still go off the slides.
All I heard was a slide that got shortened, but I thought I had to finish it, or is that the last slide? Okay.
I have a few more slides. It just goes over like metabolic syndrome and then vitamins and herbs for insulin resistance. I don't know if you want to touch on those and then go into Sculpt. It's up to you.
Oh, I can just, yeah, that's fine. You want me to just talk, just like do like a lecture without slides? That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Okay, go for it. Okay. Hi, everybody. Everyone. Good to see you. Oh, sorry. I think I have to do a few things. So everyone can hear me okay, right? So I just want to remind to add to what Dr. Christina Rahm said about the different mechanisms of actions of the drugs that we use for weight loss. If you refer back to the root U that I did, I went through all those drugs, but I'm happy to do that again today. But I just want to tell you, you can go back to that root U lecture. And I want to remind about the GLP-1, the glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor or protein peptide, excuse me, that's in the brain and in the gut has a short half-life. It doesn't work for very long. It's supposed to sense low insulin, high sugar. It cellular signals the pancreas to secrete insulin just quickly, just like a quick conversation. I need some insulin and take care of the sugar, and it shuts itself down. So Ozempic is a GLP-1 agonist, meaning it puts the pedal to the metal on GLP-1 and keeps it on, and it's not supposed to stay on like that. So naturally, that particular mechanism is a short-acting mechanism. So if you keep it on like that and you keep forcing the pancreas to make insulin, especially if the beta islet cells that make insulin are not working, I'm freezing up. You doing okay? All right. Then you're forcing other systems in the body to have to turn on and compensate for this overdrive of GLP-1. And when you overcompensate for GLP-1, you need the fat cells to come up to the play, right? They need to come up and start taking on as much sugar as they can. And if they're all white and not brown and thermogenic and heating up, they're going to have a hard time absorbing that sugar. If you're dealing with fatty liver, it's not going to be able to step up to the plate and take on extra sugar. And if you have low muscle mass, it will not be able to take on any more sugar. So that's what's going on with Ozempic. With Sculpt, and then the other thing to consider is with type 2 diabetes and the conventional side, when we treat a patient with type 2 diabetes, we actually treat them with 3 or 4 meds. It's almost like, as I talked about before with Clayton on the ambassador call, Sculpt has these multiple mechanisms that we would have done conventionally with 3 or 4 different bottles. And because it's a multifactorial problem. You're trying to target the fat, you're trying to target the muscle, you're trying to target the liver, you're trying to target the pancreas, and each of those drugs are trying to do that. So technically, they know the root cause, but because it's synthetic and because it's not natural, the receptor site that those drugs go to keeps the pedal to the metal. It keeps it turned on unnaturally. Your body wants to have feedback loops. It wants to turn on, it wants to turn off. When it's met a need, it wants to turn off and shift itself to something else. So what Sculpt is trying to do is use those pathways and help those pathways remember how to work naturally. So if you already have fat cells that are mostly white, that are large, and they're not able to take in sugar and release sugar effectively, that pathway is going to take time to heal. Okay, if you have a fatty liver that you're dealing with from alcohol or non-alcoholic fatty liver, that's going to take time for that liver to heal in order for that mechanism to complement nicely with the formulation of Sculpt. Muscle mass, I was just reading a study the other day that our resting expenditure, so when we're sitting all day, working, reading, what have you, watching a movie, we should still be able to burn calories efficiently. Our body is supposed to be a burning machine. And if you've lost a lot of muscle mass, like me, because the last 3 years I've been sitting like a lot of hours, I'm not burning calories. So there goes that saying that when you look at food, you gain weight. That's me, because I've lost a lot of muscles. That's a huge amount of caloric energy that is being wasted. So that's why strength training is really important to try to gain that muscle, which is why Crush is so unique, because it's helping you build that muscle, helping you build that endurance. It helps promote antioxidant production by the tetraside, the superoxide dismutase production of that, which is glutathione, help make glutathione. So you have these 2 things in place to kind of give your body the support that it needs. So these mechanisms within our body, these epigenetic mechanisms, can actually start healing and reversing and working. And when I say healing, I'm not making a medical claim. I'm just talking about some of the damages that we're all dealing with, the obstacles that prevent us from losing weight. Does that make sense? How are we doing on time? Should I answer some questions right now or keep talking? Oh, let me make one more thing that I remembered. If you go back to the root U, I was talking about stacking your biohacking. So we have other products within root U that help those areas that we talked about. So it helps with the liver detoxification, which actually Crush does a lot of that. It helps with cleaning out your toxins, the metals, the glyphosates, the pesticides, right, with like clean slate. We have the immune defense shield to help your mitochondria, right? We need that energy. If you lose muscle mass, you've lost energy. So now you got to go to the second source for energy, and that's the mitochondria. And I was reading another review article that they're looking into new weight loss drugs on the market beyond Ozempic, and they're really focusing on the mitochondria. And I'm really concerned about that because they want to tap in. It's called mitochondrial leaking. They want to tap into that ATP, that Krebs cycle, and force it to make energy. Well, ATP requires diet. It requires balance of fats, carbs, and proteins that to make energy. So if you force that mitochondria to work faster than it can, and it doesn't have the nutrients that it needs, I'm really concerned with these new drugs that are coming out of the market and what they're going to do with that. So what I'm trying to say is if you lose energy from the muscle, the next source of energy is the mitochondria. We stack the biohacking with the Crush is a great combination because it adds muscle, it adds those amino acids for your muscle, it adds the energy that you need through the tetrasod, and it gives you actually butyric acid as well, which is really good for the lipid, the fatty layer of your cells. And then if you feel that you need more mitochondrial support to get extra energy, you could do that with Immune Defense Shield. You might need some extra gut support, with Restore and Zero In. Again, I'm not making any medical claims. I'm just trying to explain that these pathways might need some extra support depending on your history and your own lifestyle. So